Hello, this is now Sunday 25th of August 2024. So this is another chat about one of the personal challenges that I've done in the past. I'm now in a tapering off period before the Cotswold Way Century Ultra attempt, and that will be on, I think, is it the 14th or the 15th of September? But anyway, I'm tapering off, so I've got a bit of time to tell you about one of my other previous long runs that I've done. Is personal challenge. This was done on Monday 15th of October 2018. I've got my diary entry in front of me. So let's see what this one is about. Now the background to this one is that my old running club, Town and Country Harriers, one of the blokes from there, he actually well, I wouldn't say set it up, because obviously people have been walking around footpaths over time, but I guess he made it a bit more well known, and it's become an ultra in itself, the Green Man Ultra, and the route runs right the way round Bristol. So it's right round the metropolitan hub of Bristol, not just the centre of Bristol, but right round the edge, round in some of the countryside. So we're talking about all the way around the north of Bristol, Bradley, Stoke, round there, round to the west, to the western fringes out towards Henbury, all the way around down to the south, past Hartcliffe Way, Dundry, and then over to the east as far as Keynsham. So it takes in quite a large footprint, and and in terms of planning, it's a bit of a mare because you're on 2 or 3 different maps. Yeah, unless of course you have online GPS, which I don't think I had at that stage. But anyway, so the Green Mile route is theoretically 45 miles, and I know that on that day I ran a lot more. And I think I've got a note here that says it was 48 miles in the end, because I had to go slightly off piste because I was unsupported solo. Then I had to pop into the shops for food. So I stopped at places like the Tesco Express, out towards Warmley. I think I popped into the Sainsbury's local in Keynsham on the High Street, and at Bradley Stoke I stopped into the Tesco, the huge, great big Tesco there, but it was brilliant. I could get all of the food that I needed along the way, and it meant that I didn't have to cart around a whole load of stuff in my bag that would have made the rucksack even heavier than it was. So I did record it all on Strava, but I think at the time I didn't think that the file was syncing, which was a bit of a downer at a time. But then a couple of days later it popped through. So maybe at that time the file was like so huge, or I got it on some setting that the amount of data that I'd collected was so huge that it took a couple of days for it to come through on Strava. No idea why, but there we are. So anyway, on to the run. So I said that I started at 6 a.m. I had woken up at 4:30 and was awake, so I decided to have a nice bowl of hot porridge, take my tablets, read a little, then head out into the dark. And for me, this was a bit unnerving for me, because I wasn't planning to be running in the dark. But of course, at that time of year, the first hour was in the dark and it was raining. So despite the forecast saying that it would be dry, then there was some early rain. I had packed a paper map. I had a waterproof one to hand, but didn't foresee needing it in hindsight, which of course is 2020. I would have taken the waterproof version rather than packing the paper map, but there we are. What do I say? Yeah, so I say that I had my waterproofs on for about 2/3 of the way around. It was dry for only half the time. Going up Dundry was horrible, and the wind and cloud over the top was appalling. I had previously recce'd some of the route, so I didn't have too much difficulty in the top sections. So that's in the north of Bristol, so we're talking about like Bradley Stoke, around there, Henbury. And I was less familiar with the Woolard sections. Also, I'd forgotten the Shortwood sections because I hadn't done the section around Hambrook or Stoke Gifford in recent times. So that made me more reliant on the map. My map didn't cover Bradley Stoke, I say, and Patchway through Easter Compton. So I was doing that section on waymarking signs alone. Although I had done a lot of it in previous years, there were still times that I got slightly lost. So I'm reading back through my diary again. My aim was to get up across the fields to Easter Compton and up onto Spaniorum Hill before it got dark. I just about managed that. It was dark for the last couple of miles of the run through Henbury, and it was pretty hair-raising running up the back of the Blaze Castle Hill. And I say that I was scared shitless, as there was little escape routes and the path gets a little exposed. So I said it was dark as dark, which actually takes me back to my teenage years when we were studying Under Milk Wood by Dylan Thomas, and in the opening page, which we studied in really over the top detail, he said it was blacker than black or whatever it was bombazine black. But anyway, so that takes me back to then when it was dark as dark. So I say that the head torch helped, but didn't help my nerves. It got light as I came down onto the suspension bridge with its twinkly lights. Now, for this run, normally you'd start the Green Man route down in Ashton, down towards Ashton Courtway, towards south central Bristol. So I'd chosen to start at Henbury, near the Aldi, and I say that I'd chosen to start at Aldi Henbury as a token gesture towards my Green Man on a budget theme. I only had to buy food en route, spending £5.80 a snip compared to Green Man races commercially. I took a couple of home packed cheese sandwiches and gummy sweets, but the rest was a sandwich and bars of chocolate and a water bottle. My high five hydration tabs I stored in my mini Tic Tac holders, and I reused them again as this worked during my last big run. So again, this is a time of life which I was fairly skint. I think it's only a couple of years since I got made redundant, so I was starting in again in a couple of jobs, and I wasn't paid particularly well at the time. But again, this is a personal challenge on a budget, and it's entirely possible to do things on very little money, and this just shows that it cost me £5.80 to do a 45-mile circular route, including cheese sandwiches, chocolates, what have you. So let's see a little bit more blurb from the diary. I say that I chose to run along the flats and downhill where possible. Mild inclines, but fast or slow works at much steeper inclines, which generally is what ultra runners do. This worked, although I did spend some time gawping at the mat, which gave me extra breathers. Having food and drink in a rucksack also added time, as I had to get it out to use it and then put it back in again. The bladder I got with the rucksack isn't with me anymore, and a new bladder may help reduce time, but filling the bladder is harder than filling a bottle. So it swings and roundabouts. I say that I was able to refill my water bottle at Kendalshire Golf Club and buy a larger bottle of water at Tesco Bradley Stoke. I didn't feel too dehydrated, possibly because it was raining so hard, but I found that I was going behind the bushes, as it were, once an hour at least. So my waterworks and what have you worked throughout. I had less stops for the map where I knew the route more closely, and when I had no map around Patchway through Easter Compton, I had no excuse to strive, so probably was a little quicker than before. So then there's a little bit of commentary about what was happening around me. I say I was surprised there were people out and about, wailing dogs, etc., even at 6 a.m. This is bonkers in my book, as surely neither dog nor owner are really awake. There were even runners out and around Stoke Bishop just before 7 a.m. And across the downs I saw a number of dogs with flashing collars and the like. There probably wasn't an hour that went by without seeing anybody. Even a farmer by Hambrook wanted to quiz me about whether I could read a map, as even ultra runners can't read maps apparently. She even told me to wash my hands when I got home. So it was polite. So that was her trying to give a little bit of advice, but I think from the comments in my diary I found her slightly condescending. But there we go. People were trying to help, and I suppose that when you get to the stage running an ultra, somebody giving you advice, I suppose, when you're just at the end of the tether, you may just want to completely ignore it, to be frank. So let's see, there's a few comments. Yeah, there were new developments that interrupted my run. The new South Bristol Ring Road was a distraction, and I ended up getting lost between the underpass and the airport hotel. The Hambrook bypass from Bradley Stoke to the M32 was a minor inconvenience in the end. The new Amazon and Range depots on Sevenside cut the view and were real eyesores as I mounted Spaniorum Hill. So there we go. That's my commentary on what I was seeing and what was around me in the built environment. I say that I finished at 6:52 p.m. It was dark and soggy underfoot. My feet weren't too bad, ditto my legs. I was swiftly in the car and returned home for a nice hot bath and eventually some more food. I continue by saying I have to keep moving or else I will seize up. I was pleased to be home. The run, whilst interesting, got a little dull here and there. The 45 miles was achievable, if not 48 miles in actual fact. If I wasn't running solo and unsupported, perhaps the time would have come down, but I'm pleased to have got around. My core felt strong throughout, no doubt, due to my wider triathlon training of swim and bike. Yeah, so at the time I was cycling and swimming, which at the moment I do still cycle to work, much reduced than back then, and I don't do so much swimming at all now. But way back then I had pretty good core strength because I was doing a lot of swimming and biking. So there we are. So that was my Green Man attempt. And looking back on it now, I know that many other peers from town and country harriers have done the Green Man route. It's a bit of a rite of passage for tack runners. So I'm glad I did it. I'm also glad that I did it on my own, actually, because then I can just take my time and there was no pressure for me to have to do it at a particular pace or keep up with anybody else. And I was also conscious that also if I went into a commercial race, A, it'd be too expensive, and B, I'd have pressures of cut-offs. And I had no idea at that time whether I could run that kind of a distance. So it was a bit of a journey, it was a bit of an adventure. It pushed me out of my comfort zone, but I completed it. I can remember what it felt like to get to Bradley Stoke with only about, I'd possibly got 30 miles under the belt and I had 15 to go and my legs were fairly sore. And even to this day I know what that feels like, to be 30 miles in and just thinking, how the hell am I going to get this last 15 miles done? but you do, and time moves on. And one thing about running huge long distances or cycling huge long distances is it's just about putting one foot over the other and just keeping on going. Because you may have really bad patches, you may have times which you think, I'm never going to get there. But the funny thing is, though, if you take one more step and another step and another step, you're that step closer, you're that next step closer, you're that next step closer again. And so things change, time passes, and you're actually capable of more than you ever thought you could do. So on that note, I'll say thank you for listening to this one. Do think about doing the Green Man route. It is quite a cracker. There's some fantastic views, diverse terrain and scenery. Yeah, it's definitely worth a go, that one. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye bye now.